Kitco News special coverage of Bitcoin 2022 is brought to you by Coin Payments. Crypto payments made easy.
We're back at the Bitcoin Miami conference, the world's largest crypto conference, with Frank Holmes, Executive Chairman of HIVE. Welcome back to the show. Great to see you in person, Frank.
It's great to be with you. And you know what's amazing? This is a Bitcoin conference. It's also the biggest financial conference.
Is it?
Yes, as the comments. Think of 30,000 people, 2,000 a ticket. That's $60 million. Right. You add up all the sponsorships. This is a $100 million venture.
Yeah.
You could never get this for a gold mining conference. You can't get this for a banking or retail conference. You just don't get it. The biggest conference used to be for retail was Orlando, 8,000 people, free.
Yeah, why is that? Why do you think there's so much interest right now in the crypto space at large? It's not just from the investment perspective. You're seeing people buying NFTs not as an investment, just as a collectible. There's so much interest right now from generalists, investors, retailers, just the everyday average person. This is a financial conference, but it's also like a cultural conference almost.
A financial cultural conference, a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Generation X, Y, and Bitcoin is ushering it in. And I think that's a big message this morning in some of the speeches, that people better realize that if you don't find politicians that sponsor and support this ecosystem, they'll be voted out. And in the US, you have an audience of, I think, 30 congressmen and women that are part of that ecosystem that are pro-crypto.
Well, do you think politicians are now starting to, I guess, use cryptocurrencies as an avenue to garner votes from the younger population?
Absolutely. That's the trend. Except for a place like Quebec, Canada. They'd rather sell electricity half price to New York than build a crypto mining industry to support their data mining, which creates jobs. It also balances the grid. But along comes the state of Texas, and Texas is building out 10 gigawatts of electricity from the surplus natural gas they have. And they're doing everything to say, and they went up to Canada, Alberta, these guys that are drillers, natural gas drillers, and learn how to add and slap on a Bitcoin machine at the end. So if gas falls, they mine Bitcoin, very profitable. Gas goes up, they sell the gas. You're seeing all these things that are happening so fast in the US, in particular like states like Texas.
Okay, and perfect segue. Let's talk about HIVE. I know you're a very big miner and you're very much into ESG. So tie that in for us, what you just said and your latest operations.
Well, natural gas is a very low carbon footprint and there's a surplus of it. But in West Texas, there's huge windmills and there's solar panels being built every day, expansion. So HIVE has made an announcement that we're going to go and do 100 megawatts in West Texas.
Yeah.
And we also, most important, did a joint venture, strategic relationship with the great Intel. And this is about the adoption, that all of a sudden now you see Intel is manufacturing ASIC special chips, which are half the price of Bitmain and 40% more efficient, but they only want to be where you have a green footprint. So that's why they reached out to us. And so we've negotiated, we've already sent money. We sold some of our Ethereum, which we made a lot of money from our shareholders, and then plowed it into expansion for, we think it'll be about 3.6 exahash. So what does that mean? That means we're going to be producing close to 25 Bitcoin a day.
Wow.
Which is a lot of money when you think about it for 20 employees. And most of our employees are you look at it, are actually in Quebec and New Brunswick.
And I've asked you this before, but you're not planning to mine anything else right now for the moment besides Bitcoin?
And Ethereum. Our Ethereum has incredible 90% margins, and we're able to take, remember last year we gave the mega almost $70 million order to NVIDIA, that we bought those gaming chips, the highest performing. We get our money back, and then we can go to high performance computing. We have a facility downtown Montreal, which we're building out for HPC, and so we believe that that's a very high margin business also. So we're very busy. We announced our results today, and still I think against all the other crypto miners, HIVE has the highest efficiency ratio and still the most revenue per share.
I'm just curious to get your thoughts on this. Oil, as you know, new all-time highs, $100 a barrel. Well, not quite new all-time highs, but close. Has that affected the cryptocurrency space at all? Has that impacted capital flows from one sector to another? Has that impacted miners such as yourself, bottom lines and fixed costs?
No.
No whatsoever?
We're hydro or we're geothermal. So that's not impacted us. And for a lot of the other, when you're in Texas and you're in other certain jurisdictions, it's a very fluid market that you can hedge.
Yeah.
So we hedge out our energy prices, even in Sweden, at 2 cents. Right. So it's the lowest cost. So no, I think it's not impacted. But what's really interesting are the Paul Revere's or the crypto liberators. When the truck strikes were taking place in Canada, guess who was sending $500 worth of Bitcoin? All these sort of, I call them the Paul Revere's, sending money up. And they sent $60 million of Bitcoin to Ukraine to help battle back against the Russians. Yeah. But you're not seeing that with gold bugs. They're not sending gold over.
You can't.
You can't, right? So crypto is something that's very special, and it's one of those alternative asset classes that Goldman Sachs and other major banks are getting behind and setting up the trading for it.
Well, I'm curious as to why gold went up in the last couple of months, especially during the early days of the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian forces, whereas Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies haven't really moved upwards in response to a huge geopolitical crisis. People have been saying, well, Bitcoin is digital gold, Bitcoin is a safe haven asset. Hasn't performed that way, at least not in March.
I would challenge that. Our Ethereum went down to $2,400 and zapped back up to 35. Yeah. It's under 35 now. And we expanded our footprint that we're producing an extra $100,000 a day. So no, I think from the lows in February 24th when the invasion took place, Ethereum has risen, and so is Bitcoin. But the big headwind is regulations and how it would be the EU versus the US in the regulations. So I think there's a big push by a lot of politicians here, and I hope Canada can get its act together to understand that politicians and regulators that you have to embrace young taxpayers.
Inflation is also something that crypto investors are watching out for a lot more now. I've been reading that wealthy investors, for example, Goldman's asset management firm, there's some news from Goldman's asset management arm that their wealthy investors are now viewing Bitcoin as an inflation hedge. Now, I'm just bringing this back to oil. There's a lot of reasons for why inflation is at the levels that currently is, right? There's energy prices, there's money printing, quantitative easing, whatever the cause may be, we're seeing inflation at 40-year highs. What role does Bitcoin have to protect your wealth right now?
Well, Bitcoin's capped at 21 million coins. If they turn around and cap the production of gold tomorrow, gold would all of a sudden go through the roof also. It's recognizing that gold's still producing millions of ounces a year. And Bitcoin is capped. And 2 years from now, the last 2 million coins are going to have again. So it's going to become more competitive and more competitive. So I think it's being treated like an original Andy Warhol piece of art. There's a limited edition, and more people look to that a digital asset, electronic asset. And it's having all, like the buy-in from Intel is very, very significant. And then having, like you said, Goldman Sachs, well, there's whales here. The whales spend $15,000 a ticket to attend this conference. $15,000 a ticket. How many conferences you go to where people are spending $15,000 and there's a whole special area for them? It's incredible. So Goldman Sachs, high net worth customers, many of them are here.
People can also pay for these tickets with Bitcoin. So there's an actual use case for Bitcoin. Let's talk about the utility of Bitcoin. So we know that there are a lot of different use cases for DeFi applications from Ethereum, from Solana, and all those other things, altcoins I'm talking about. But let's focus on Bitcoin for now. That's one of the things you might...
When you talk about it, you have to be really careful and respect that Bitcoin and Ethereum are digital assets because you have to buy the technology and you have to use electricity. So rather than going in the ground to separate the gold from the dirt and melt it down using energy to create this tangible asset, you create this intangible asset with a real economic cost of electricity and equipment. When you go to, that's proof of work. Those transactions are validated with proof of work. When you go to proof of stake, like Solana's proof of stake, it's a lot less energy is what the whole argument is, but the thought process is that regulators want to treat that as a security, not as a digital asset.
Right.
So as new regulations come in, and they do come down after Ripple, and they do come after all the proof of stakers that are out there, then you will see those particular assets, altcoins, fall dramatically relative to Bitcoin.
Okay. Now, what about the reason for adopting Bitcoin? We've seen Bitcoin being adopted by not just the institutions, but also the retailers. Whereas before, institutions were maybe buying it as a safe haven asset or a store of value, inflation hedge, if you want to call it that. What other use cases does Bitcoin have now that it's been, almost 13 years?
Well, it goes to prove that you can put all stock transactions on it. The whole idea of the blockchain, Bitcoin validated the thesis that all securities transactions, all voting, stop blood diamond, stop blood gold. You can put it all on the blockchain. And Bitcoin has shown that. And that triple entry accounting model, they like to call it, there's been no technical breakthrough in accounting since the Medicis in the 1400s. So that's double entry accounting. Now we're going to triple entry, which basically unlocking an encryption. So I think that some of these conferences, like the next one coming up is Consensus, IBM will be huge there. When they were in New York City, they were the biggest player in the space because they see the direction of blockchain.
Okay. Now, gold NFTs, you brought up this to me offline. That's a very interesting space. So you're marrying two completely different assets. Tell us about that.
Well, when you do that, it's predominantly those use Ethereum as the block, sort of the model. Ethereum has so many applications, from stable coins to NFTs to DeFi. They're all predominantly built on the backbone of the Ethereum network. Yeah. So the faster those other new financial assets grow, so does the use for Ethereum. That's what's propelled Ethereum to outperform last year Bitcoin. Okay. So I think that the thought process, they've tried it before, is that you would have a coin that would be backed by gold. And so where would the custody be kept? Right. The Royal Mint in Canada. I know that the CME was trying to do something with the Royal Mint in UK, but nothing has really prevailed. And the most interesting things we've seen is the concept of creating a fungible NFT, a gold, like a royalty unit. And so it's being funded right now. So I think that things like that are going to be very interesting because there's a lot of people that love gold. They're afraid of crypto, but all of a sudden you could move this digital asset around, and you knew it was always collateralized against gold. It'll be less volatile than Ethereum or Bitcoin, but the concept of adoption would accelerate the overall crypto ecosystem. Give you a data point. Yeah. Ethereum has moved more money in transactions than Visa. It just shocks people when you look at the total dollars that have traded around it in the past year. So the Ethereum network is.
Where is this trading coming from? Like, what is this being used for?
Oh, for all the money flows for money market funds that are basically on the back of U.S. dollars. Stable money market funds are really like backed by U.S. dollars. Right. So that's back on the backbone of Ethereum. One of the first to come out with it. The very bottom of the crypto bear market was when J.P. Morgan stopped all its negative talk and they announced their stable coin. That's so right. All that negative narrative was because they were trying to run as fast as possible, come up with their own coin. Well, that's been very successful.
How do you feel about ETH 2.0, slated to be released this year in June? It's supposed to reduce energy consumption, switching to a proof of stake model. It's supposed to be deflationary in the sense that now we've got a burn rate supposedly for Ethereum that's going to be higher than the actual rate of production, so mine rate. So actually we're going to lose supply of Ethereum. And so we've got an asset that has so many use cases that you've just talked about that's also deflationary, that's also got a lot of utility outside of just a store of value, that's also has a potential to become a challenger to Bitcoin. So how do you feel about all this playing out in Ethereum?
No, I think Lightning Networks is where the smart money is going, big venture capital, moving Bitcoin and moving Ethereum. I think it's a lot of FUD. All right. Since the HIVE was first went out, it was the first crypto mining Ethereum. It was first in Iceland. And the same story was back in 2017. And then earlier this year, Vitalik came out and said one of his biggest disappointments is that he thought that since 2015, they would go proof of stake. proof of stake is centralized. It's not decentralized. It's really important to understand decentralized versus centralized. And all of a sudden you'd have a few stakeholders validating all the transactions. That's once again, that could be the central bank.
Right.
So if they were to do that and they were to hurt the ecosystem of all the Ethereum miners, now I'm told there's 30 million miners mining 1 to 2 Ethereum a year from their gaming machines because they got GPU chips. Or they're computer designers and they go to bed and they turn on their computer and they start mining Ethereum so they can get 2 coins a year. Oh, that's a nice score, isn't it? When I was a kid, I had a paper route in the snow. Now you just turn around your machines and you can turn around and earn an extra $3,000 to $7,000 a year. So that creates, they need wallets and they trade, they buy other coins, and they buy more Ethereum. So I think that's a very treacherous path to go. And so don't hold your breath. I've been listening to this narrative now since HIVE went public, and it hasn't done anything.
Yeah. HIVE, well, okay, so if you had to choose between Ethereum or Bitcoin as a long-term store of value, what would you prefer?
Oh, it'd be Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Bitcoin because of its overall nature, its structure, the embedded code in it. So yeah, I would think so, and I do believe, like I've said, that you mine a virgin coin. So right now we're about 1% of the network, and every 10 minutes it's a jump ball or drop puck to try to get a piece to that encryption, so I can get more Bitcoins, and so it's now going to have. So it's going to be more difficult. So anytime you then mine, so when you go and validate a transaction, you get what's called a virgin coin. It's never been in cyberspace. There's no anti-money laundering risks, etc. They're right there. I believe like the original piece of Babe Ruth baseball card, it's worth $1 million. How can one card that costs a nickel be worth $1 million? Because it's the original. And I believe, just like original dollar bills, that they have a greater value to them if they've never been in circulation. So I think what we're hodling is not only Bitcoin, but I think intrinsically it's like alternative art.
Final topic, and I'll let you go, Frank. You're also an expert on economics. We've been talking about cryptos for 15 minutes, but let's go back to some of the monetary roots that have propelled your analysis to the forefront of media. We've been talking to you for years. Anyway, so Federal Reserve slated to increase rates 5, 6, 7 times is what they projected. They've raised it once already. What's next?
They have to be so careful slowing down the economy in an election year and Biden losing control of Congress. It's a very sensitive issue this way. Yeah. The only way they could do it is if it had real positive interest rates, right. Would really be a crisis to the overall economy. The 10 and 2 years now gone inverted. I think the stress is already starting to show up in the system. But I think when push comes to shove, of any type of a quick economic slowdown, MMT, baby.
I'm just going to give you to wrap up, let's do something fun. I'm going to give you a series of statements. Just answer true or false and back it up with 1 or 2 sentences, all right? Interest rate hikes this year will crash the gold market.
No.
No? Why not?
Because interest rates will not go positive.
Real interest rates, you mean?
Real interest rates will not go positive.
Fair point. Interest rate hikes will crash the crypto markets.
No, they won't. The crypto market is on its own trajectory.
Okay. A recession is coming by the end of this year, perhaps 2023.
That's highly possible. Highly possible.
Is that because of the Federal Reserve? Is that because of just the nature of the business cycle?
Well, you got to think that also China. One of the things I've always spoken on your program is Purchasing Manufacturers Index. Yeah. And China went below 50. This means they're slowing down because they've shut down their system. Yeah. And that's 55% of all commodity demand. So I think that's they're in a very sort of stressful drama. Let's see how much money they print. Okay. But David, I share with you, just be bullish, buy on the dips and hodl, and all those gold bugs. Make sure you tell your gold CEOs that they ought to hold up. They got free cash flow. They should keep, just like we at HIVE, we mine Bitcoin and we hodl it because we believe it's going higher. If I'm a gold miner and I produce it and I've got free cash flow, I should hold it. Don't sell it now, it's too cheap.
I wonder how that would impact the price of gold if people just keep it off their books. Look up. Excellent meeting you in person, Frank. Always a pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Wheels up.
All right, and thank you for watching Kitco News. We'll have more for you from Miami.
Kitco News special coverage of Bitcoin 2022 is brought to you by Coin Payments. Crypto payments made easy.